Hello, welcome back. Day 21. We are journaling about the weather. It can be actual weather, it is sunny, it is rainy, etc., etc. Or I think elements of weather, clouds, rainbows, rain, sunshine, something like that. And then we're talking about grids and tracking in journals. This is something that's not very common in junk journal spreads, but very, very common in planner spreads and especially bullet journaling spreads. And you can track basically anything from your water intake to your money spending, to your meal planning, to your sleep, health issues, fun things, what books you read, what movies you liked, what you plan to do. I googled free printables tracking and I got a whole lot of things. It's something completely new for me, and it's something that I've sort of started pondering because I don't like keeping, or I found that it doesn't work for me to keep separate junk journalers and planning things because I end up using the one and not the other, or I write something in the one and not in the other. So I want to make sort of a hybrid model. So that is one of my goals for 2021. We'll get to goals in one of the later days. So for now, I downloaded some trackers just as a visual, so we can discuss that. This is from Create and Craft blog. It's a TV show, I think, that they made a blog on. But isn't that nice? A mindfulness tracker, and it's actively thinking about actual events in your day or in your week and tracking them, keeping actual physical records of them rather than just sort of the brain dump general feelings journaling. I think some of us do. So that one was quite nice, and they come in little cards that you can cut. So something like that on an index card would work quite well because that can tuck into a pocket and be hidden. You don't need to see the sort of more personal stuff. This is a habit tracker, so that's a big one. You can also print these off. They are from Clementine Creators. And I see it's a .co.za address, so it must be a South African, which is quite nice. And any habit you can think of, water, go to bed on time, make my bed. And it's as easy as either checking or colouring when you've made it. When you go into bullet journaling and when you do some research on bullet journaling, I'm not a bullet journaling expert. There's a whole list of symbols. So I think like a stripe will be you've done it, and a little arrow will mean you've moved it on to the next day, things like that. I won't go into such detail when I start tracking things. This is another version of the habit tracker, but generally what these trackers have in common is the use of grids or lines because you need to be able to mark things off. This one was also quite a nice one. I often have ideas, what I need to do, what I think I can do, what I'm busy with. So this is also a nice way to track it in where you are being creative in your journal. And then grids don't need to be like black and white because this is I think the reason we don't incorporate them in junk journals, it's quite stark and quite formal for some of us, but you get vintage grid pages, right? So these are all vintage pages. This is like maths blocks, engineering or graph drawing, scrapbook paper with grids. So I think it is something that we can definitely incorporate, and you don't need to incorporate like an A4. It can be something very, very simple and basic. You also get grid washi, which you can just snip off a bit and track one thing. Track the weather, track your water intake, track your mood, track did I journal, yes, no. Did it improve my mood? You get grid stamps, and then of course you can just draw a grid with a pen and a ruler. So I'm going to do a weather page, and I'm going to track I need to track health. I struggle with headaches, and I know there's a correlation between them and sleep, stress, and diet. But, you keep it in your mind and you think you'll remember. You don't. So I definitely want to include tracking in my journal pages. But at the same time, I don't want a giant grid in the middle of my page. So it's forever for us with journaling is to have a bit more of functional journaling. So to have something functional, but it's also pretty. So that's the balance that I want to strike, and the sort of new hybrid journaling that I want to attempt for 2021. So any ideas will be welcomed. It's something that I'm exploring. In terms of tracking, if you start researching, and it is really you go down. Circles are also quite popular. So I think something like a doily that you can segment into maybe 7, what have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, whatever, 9 habits. And you just build out like those school when you put money in and the needle goes up, something like that, your habits. So that's a fun way perhaps to use a doily for us as junk journalers. So that's really what I'm starting to think about, is how to track in a fun way. And if it's not in a fun way, and if it's not in a way that's decorative, I know I'm not going to do it, especially in my junk journal. I think if you're a gardener, tracking the date that you plant a seed versus where you see first growth versus yield rate, those sort of things, there's lots to track in daily life. And I think with us doing everything on our phones and saving dates and things on our phones, you lose that. I religiously check my rain gauge, but I don't track the rain, and it's such an easy thing to track. I'm thinking back to the envelope folder that we made, and I think that because you can remove it and move it along in your journal, would also be quite a good vessel for keeping your tracking things. So for example, if you were doing mindfulness tracking like this, to have a version of these cards printed out and ready, and you can just write on them, and then on your page you could mark, yes, I've done my mindfulness tracking, or I haven't, something like that. I am struggling with the grid and what to keep track of. Do you keep track of everything, or do you keep track of nothing? So I'm just doing a fun page. This was a background page that I had played around with the alcohol inks and the distress sprays and things on waxed paper. So that was waxed. So this is just offcut, but it looks to me like a sky. And I've cut some clouds from the doilies, just as fun. I'll highlight them a bit. And then I've done a tiny grid for my business, days of the week, listed, sold, and whether I reached the target. So it will be something as basic as not even a tick. You can just do a dot. Yes, I listed. Yes, I listed. Yes, I sold, or no, I didn't sell everything and I reached target, or I didn't reach target. So it's a very quick visual grid record keeping of anything. And I mean, it's not like it's the entire page, and you could have done it as a tuck that hides away, or as a hidden journaling tip out, or any of the hidden journaling things we've discussed. So, and what is this? 5.5 by 9. It's really the tiniest part of the page. And you can also do a whole page with little grids like these, and it takes a minute because the grid gives you an instant way to work. I'm using the December daily definitely to also play around with some ideas for me going into 2021 and how to approach my journaling, because I'm not listing anything for December in any case. So this grid is not useful to me as is, so it's just ideas. And then I've given all of my cloud silver linings, of course, because every cloud has a silver lining. This, for example, was a rainbow page that I had made in part of my initial 21 days of lockdown journal page a day. So again, clouds, rainbow made of maps, some stenciling. So this sort of as a rainbow actually would work well as a tracker too, because you've got something to fill. So that's also maybe if you're saving for something, that's actually quite a nice way, a visual way to use a rainbow as a tracking thing. Countdowns to birthdays, holidays, special events can also form part of a tracking, that instead of adding a dot, you take one away or something like that. So there's some interesting ways to track things. It's just really wrapping your mind around it, and I'm still getting to that, but it's definitely an element that I think will be useful in my journaling. So I don't think you have to track daily, because you can also track weekly or every 3 days, whenever you know you're journaling. So, but also having a daily tracker in your journal is also just that minute of focusing. If you don't want to do a page, at least you keep your tracking up to date. You can also track with stickers, little dots. So if you want to add some more fun. You also get journaling cards with grids or with little lists and prompts on. So those are also quite handy to add. It's just a visual. It forces you, and it's not. I find that if I plan or I write it in a diary, or if it almost causes me anxiety because it's real, and if you don't do it, you failed. But somehow hiding it in the junk journal, I still do it and I still think about it and I'm still purposeful about it, but it's I'm calmer about it. I filled in the little morning routine, and when you see it like this, it seems deceptively simple, but when you need to do it, you don't actually do it. I then made the page pocket, and I included one of these little mindfulness trackers, which I just stuck on an index card. Even just looking at it now, it's incredibly difficult for me to fill out. And I mean, it's lunchtime, I've had a busy day. It's just something that I'm not used to doing, keeping track of things in such a specific prescribed manner. That's a heat embossed little sun. Maybe you can see it. And then I've stuck the whole thing on a grid. So what I'm going to do for this page and for my own sort of thought process is I'm going to play around with what grids will work for me going into next year, and the same on the back page. So I don't think, like, you don't have to have a grid on every journal page that you make every day, but they are handy little tools, and they're not to-do lists, and they're not, I don't think they're placing stress on you to perform. It's merely taking note of something that happened and documenting it. You'll see I also placed a stamp that says documented. Noted, documented, take note. Those sort of stamps are quite popular. Also wording and stickers and things. So if you wanted to include some text, that would be good. Tomorrow is day 23, and we are talking and journaling about you. So get ready for a selfie, whether it's a figurative selfie that you are making a page just about you and your likes, or whether you are being brutally honest, or whether you are adding an actual photo of yourself. But we very rarely journal about ourselves, I find. So it's a combination. The prompt and the technique is sort of one. There's no separate technique. So time to take a good hard look at yourself tomorrow. I maybe even show myself on camera. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.